Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another ITY TV video interview. Today I'm joined by Ian Williams from Good Men Helping Good Men, also known as GMHGM. And Ian is a leadership coach and a speaker. Welcome to the program.
Hey Alex, how are you, my friend?
I'm really good. Thank you for taking the time. Now, Ian, I've read your launch materials. I've downloaded the app, which we'll explore further in a moment. But let's start at the beginning. What is the Good Men Helping Good Men movement and why did you create it?
So, the Good Men Helping Good Men movement, what it's about is scaling change for fulfillment for men in today's society because I think a lot of men are just lost. We talk about, what I couldn't get my head around was suicide is the leading cause of death between
Mm,
the ages of 15 to 45. Once that landed with me, I was like, why aren't we really doing something deeply about this? And I went to look at it, and there's a lot of depth down certain pillars. There's a lot of, meditation, breath work, counseling, health and fitness. But each one of those kind of pillars can be really deep and overwhelming for people. And there's a lot of podcasts out there where, people are talking in depth about this stuff. And I think a lot of men come away going, that's great, but what do I do with this now?
mm.
So been working with a lot of men. I do leadership coaching. I start doing a lot of life coaching. And with the men I was working with, I could see that, sometimes men are very meat and potatoes. And the more simple we can give it, the easier it is to follow. So I was working with men for a couple of years, and I found these 20 questions that I would ask, which would give me a holistic view of the five pillars of fulfillment, which is health and fitness, social connections, work and life flow, inner work, and love and relationships. And that gives me a real kind of simple overview of where we're strong and where we've got areas of opportunity. So then I started running workshops. I live in Coogee in Sydney by the beach. I was running kind of men's circles on the hill. And the impact was incredible. It's almost like the people who turn up are willing to do the work. And when you're willing to do the work and you follow this framework, it's had 100% strike rate on the movement. So I was like, right, this is working. This is gold. I'm not seeing it out there anywhere else. And I need to scale this. So hence why I thought I need to bring this into an app. And myself not being very techy, I was like, okay, this is going to be a bit of overwhelming for me. So I had to then bring in the right people. And it's been a journey over the last 2 years to try and replicate what I'm doing on the one-on-one and the group into scale. So that's kind of where we are. And what during this process, I kind of realized when I was younger, when I was 18 years of age, and something that I'd kind of buried, my cousin committed suicide, my cousin Stephen. And I'd kind of buried that. And throughout this process, it came through. Uh, and by using my kind of reverse engineering what was going on in his life then, I realized that didn't need to happen.
Mm.
It did not need to happen. I could see that he was like zero in his loving relationships. He had a serious problem there. He'd cut off all his friends, zero on social connections. He had no purpose to his work. So and he did no inner work, so he didn't understand himself. So he had a really low kind of foundation of human fulfillment. So when the shit was coming at him, like which happens in life, he had no kind of solid foundation to tackle. So that really I thought he didn't need to go there. I've been through my own troubles within business, as you entrepreneurship and so on. When I've looked out at the beach and said, "Is this it?" And then I started working with myself, with others, and we're here today with an app which is hopefully going to have that impact that I really wanted to.
Yeah. Well, look, in the modern world, men seem to have been subjected to, like, I don't know, feminization. They're not understanding how to be masculine, how to be men anymore. A lot of men don't have success with women. They don't have like a morning practice where they work on themselves first. They fill their own cup before filling everybody else's. That you wake up, the first thing you do is you reach for your phone. You're immediately bombarded with all this other information, and you haven't done any work on yourself. And in ancient times, I mean, there was a tribe, and boys learn to become men. Jewish people have the bar mitzvah. The 13-year-old sort of time period is when boys are meant to become men. In tribes, they'd go off on some sort of quest with their elders and they'd learn how to become a man. And that is missing from today's world. And that's one of the reasons why so many men are lost. And when you've got, all these different things coming at you from every different angle, it can feel overwhelming, and suicide can seem like the easy way out.
You're spot on. And in today's society, if you just look at, if you look back years ago, as soon as the technology's increased, social media's increased, when we talk about the age, it's decreased. So the age is kind of getting earlier, where
Mm.
people are suffering from anxiety, depression, and all of these problems. It's not just, it's men and women, but we're focusing on men at the moment for here. So what you've just spoken about there is so spot on. We had elders, we had mentors, we had coaches, and we are a program. We are all a computer program of our
Yeah.
surroundings. We are coded by our parents. We are coded by our peers, by our work, by our governments, by our society. And if we're coded wrong, or we're coded with some bad code, we're infected. We've got a virus.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. And so what we're trying to do in this modern society, what we're trying to do is, there's religions and everything that goes across. What you've just described is kind of the good men philosophy. These five pillars of fulfillment kind of supersede all religions, all cultures, because it's basically at its core, what does it mean to be a good human being and to provide fulfillment to you? Within those five pillars, you will have some bespoke things related to you, but there's a lot of standard stuff about being a good human being. And at its core, our very fabric is, I believe, is this question: are the actions or the words I'm about to speak intended to harm others
Mm.
at its core? And if we ask ourselves that question, maybe we should stop and think, because that goes against the very fabric. We are a human species, and that question goes against the human species as a collective. On the flip side, if the words I'm about to speak or the action I'm about to take going to add value, I'm adding value to my species. And
Yeah.
I think at its very essence, that is what we're trying to do. Now, that goes across all religions, all cultures, all countries, because we're lifting above as a human being. And that's what we're trying to actually create. And this is what we're birthing. And that's why it'll move into other areas, if that makes sense.
Look, it does. And my father, for example, he was born in China. So was my mother, coincidentally. And, my father's father, my grandfather, left when my father was 3, sort of chased off by his mother's relatives. I don't know what the story was there, but we tried to find him later in life back in Russia, and we never could. And so my father grew up without a father, and, he wasn't able to sort of teach me masculinity and how to be a man. And throughout my life, I've sort of tried to find mentors to try and learn from. And I mean, if you look on X, and back in 2001, there was a dating course that I undertook. Actually, flew to Los Angeles for a weekend, and I've done a number of these courses since. And the thing they never taught you was what masculinity was, what it meant to actually be a man. They were teaching you all these things. It's like a mechanic who knows how to, top the oil, change the disc brakes, change the cabin filters, replace a tire, find a leak in the exhaust. But that mechanic never learnt how to drive a car, And so you learn all these things that are disconnected or don't make sense until you learn the fundamentals of what masculinity is all about. And recently, completely separate to you, I discovered a gentleman on X who is running a school of men, as it's called. And I've joined this, and suddenly, listening to his podcast, I had this epiphany of what masculinity was based on how he explained it all. And suddenly, all the things that I'd learned in the past made sense. And I remember feeling this overwhelming feeling of, I don't know, just sort of power, not in any kind of power mad way, 15 or 20 years ago in Balmain in Sydney, as I was walking to some event. And ever since, I've been trying to feel that feeling naturally. And if you sort of forced yourself to feel it, you could. But when I heard this podcast, and it suddenly struck me like a bolt of lightning, I could suddenly feel what masculinity was. And it was like this revelation. And, I've seen a lot of people, unsure about what all this is, and trying to learn this. And so it's fascinating that at this moment in time, after the last, 100 years of the modern world changing people, separating children from their parents at schools or universities. Universities are trying to teach their young men and women the opposite of what their parents, and that's from like 100 years ago in the US. You know, this has had a real impact on people, and of course, as you said, the suicide rates are really high. So it's when I got the information from Max Markson and Marta about your movement, I thought, wow, this is the moment in time. This is incredible that so many people are coming to the same conclusion, and what we are restoring is amongst men a brotherhood.
You're spot on. At this moment in time, we need to come together as brothers. You mentioned a brotherhood. We need to come together because so many people are lost. And what you've just described again is going back to what we were just briefly talking about as we've lost those mentors. I didn't have a mentor when I was younger. My dad, I could see he had traumas as a child. His mum walked out on him when he was 9 years of age, walked out and go in the shops, never came back. Serious abandonment issues. Now, because back then nobody spoke about anything, he's gone through life and then he's come into a relationship. And I'm looking back now and he's kind of gone into a relationship with my mother and really I think he wanted a bit of a mother figure in his life. So he's allowed my mum to step back a bit more into his feminine in certain roles.
Mm.
He was a breadwinner, went out, got the money. My mum went home, but she kind of looked after the finances, and she was very, that kind of, very kind of strong patriarchal mother who would, bark orders here and there. But he allowed these things to happen. So I'm watching this kind of imbalance, and I can see where it's come from. So there was a lot of toxicity sometimes in
Yeah.
how they would interact, but he allowed that to happen because he didn't have a mentor, had a lot of traumas. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't have that brotherhood. People didn't talk as much as maybe what they're about to start doing, I believe. So we need brotherhoods. We need to be able to share. And that masculinity that you speak about, whatever's going on into society is, men have had a bit of a bad rap recently, like it's bad to be a man. Well,
Mm.
we're men. And,
Yeah.
and we all have emotions. There's certain emotions that come through, like, anger. Now, anger is a perfectly normal emotion. We all have it, men, women, anybody has it. That anger is there as a signal. It's a signal that a boundary may have been crossed. And then there's an action that needs to be taken to pull you back to center. What means something to you? Somebody might have crossed the boundary. Now, if you don't understand this and nobody's mentoring you to make you explain, hey, let's not this come out in an unhealthy way. This is what it means to you. Oh, and now what you need to do is communicate that that boundary is being crossed. And you can do this in a healthy way. And you can kind of keep yourself. And sometimes that means communicate in a way where you might have to exit some kind of relationship, friend or something. That might be the ultimate thing, but it keeps you centered to who you are. And these are the elders would teach us this back in the day, And so being a masculine, being a man and being masculine, we all have feminine and masculine energies, having empathy and stuff more drifts into the feminine. But being a man is being whole. Being a man is understanding what it all means. And for me, for example, I do have those protective sides of being a man and certain things, which is okay. That's what it is. Some people might have slightly different slants. But at our essence, if we stick to those, we always ask ourselves those questions in everything that we do. Are my actions or intentions intentionally going to harm others? That usually pulls us back to being a good person. And what you've said is that brotherhood is so essential because when you're lost and when you're struggling, the key things that I've found in the five pillars is because of the disconnections that a lot of our young men are having, and all of this, they're getting bombarded with all this dopamine through the social media, they might be suffering, they don't know who to talk to, and that's what sends them really to those critical stages. If I say out of a score of 20, if somebody sits under 5, I would say their foundation's built on jelly and they may be a risk of serious mental health crisis. Just sharing to another guy or whoever, it's like, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's almost like a collective healing when I say, hey, Alex, I'm really hurting. I've been through this and this. And you go, same here, mate. And we go, oh, it can feel like that sharing. It's almost like a healing. It gets you gets you some momentum and then we can start working, if that makes sense.
The brotherhood is the only true group of men that you can speak to about these things. I mean, you might have church groups or other groups, but I mean, sometimes people will make fun of you. They won't understand. You certainly can't talk about these sorts of things with your partner, because what I mean, obviously you can, and people do, but the thing is, men have not been taught how to lead. I mean, that's one of the problems I've always had. My name is Alexander. I'm supposed to be a leader, but if you haven't been taught how to lead and you haven't figured it out for yourself, then you just don't know, and you hand your frame of power to your partner, your wife, somebody else, and you mentioned boundaries. Setting boundaries is so incredibly important. One of the things that was happening, from what you were telling me, with your mother and father, is that your mother had to be the leader in the household. And women do not like to lead. They hate it. They'll do it, but they lose the attraction for men. The man is no longer in a position of masculine power, not overwhelming toxic masculinity, but he's in a position of being the head of the household and the leader. And that causes relationships to fall apart. And we see all sorts of relationships between men and women where often it's the woman who leaves the man because she just can't put up with his, lack of leadership anymore. And these are all sort of fundamental things that, if you don't have these things right, it's going to be very traumatic. And, this sort of thing has plagued me all of my life. And I'm glad that at the age, and now I'm 51, I'm finally figuring some of this stuff out. I wish I knew this when I was 21, when I was going to those dating courses, trying to learn this sort of stuff. And, the young people of today, if they discover you, hopefully through this video and through your own efforts, they've got a real chance of not going through the same things that most of the men over the past 100 years have gone through. And this will end up being a much better world.
Right, mate, you're spot on now. I'm 48, and it was only when I was, and it's okay, we're all perfectly imperfect. As much as I've always been emotionally intelligent, I got relationships wrong. And I got relationships wrong. The first two questions we ask in loving relationships are, do you understand your non-negotiable values in a relationship? What means something to you? What's that boundary that can't be crossed? Now, I would say about 80% of men have come back to us on that question and said, kind of, I think so, a little bit unsure. So they're really unsure. The second question is, have you had that discussion with your partner? And that's like a 95% no of all the people I've been working with. So what that means is the relationships that a lot of men are built on is on jelly. It's a bit of potluck whether you meet the right person.
Mm.
What I did at 46 years of age is, because I'm doing the work myself, I went, light bulb. This is why I've been going through these 3 or 4 year cycles of relationships, popping out the other end, and I'm going, what am I doing wrong?
Mm.
What am I doing wrong? I'm smart. I do well in business, but I've got this. I keep developing this little relationship prison where I can come home and I've got no peace. Why am I kind of arguing? And without knowing it, when we're coded, when we're younger, we kind of drift towards what we know. And I was drifting towards these women who would then have those masculine tendencies, which did not work for me. They were, trying to give me down the banks and stuff for no apparent reason. And it was because she was a beautiful human being, just wasn't right for me. Now, with my current partner, early on, I said, right, and this is what I tell most men, I'm starting to develop feelings. I really care for you. I'd just like to share with you what my boundaries are within my relationship. This is who I am, and this is what means a lot to me. This is not to be controlling or anything, because I'm prepared if this doesn't go to, we've got a path here. We either go all in or we take our separate way, because this means something to me. So there's a few things that meant something to me, which I called out. And then I actually called out, and I've noticed a few things that how you're carrying yourself in your life today that maybe aren't sitting right with me, and I can see us leading to an issue.
Mm.
So I'd just like to call that out now. I'm doing it with love and empathy, and I really care for you. What's your thoughts? And I actually had a beautiful conversation. Obviously, it takes two to tango. People have got to be able, like in business, feedback's a gift. People have got to be able to receive. Luckily, she was very, very, received it beautifully and came back with a conversation, which was, well, actually, some of those are behavioral. They're not my key values. And actually, what you've described is something that I want to aspire to in that area. Now, and some of the stuff she then called out to me. So we had a discussion, and maybe we were sitting here, and then we brought it to here. Still a little bit off, but a lot more balance.
Mm.
And we compromised. Now we've had that discussion. When anytime we'll come back now and again after a couple of months and say, hey, how's things? And we come back to that initial baseline. It's the most beautiful relationship I've ever had. I get a lot of love out of it. I am in my masculine, and I kind of take the lead on the majority of things. Sometimes she'll lead in the odd thing, which works for us. But overall, we've got that. If you go back to that, how we used to be, we've found a balance that kind of works, and that's what I'm trying to. Those two keep you because you're right to bring the relationship up because it's a lot of men's prison, and they don't know why. Those two questions, because I'm working with a lot of men, can change the life in set it literally overnight. But if you're in a relationship that is toxic or isn't going the right way, the only way you get to where you need to get to is you've got to be prepared to hold your boundary. Once you understand your boundary and you hold the boundary, that means sometimes you might have to walk through the pain park to get to the other side. I always say sometimes I might need to be removing yourself from a relationship because it's too far gone, or you just need to do the work and you're going to have some bumps. But a lot of people then go, I look at that, I know where it goes, I know the work it's going to take. I can't be bothered walking through the pain park. I'll go and focus on work. The more you do that, the more you go against your authentic self. That's what leads to burnout, depression, anxiety, and the serious mental health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, again, these are things that we should be taught these things in school. I mean, we should have fathers and grandfathers. We should have a group, a brotherhood of men that are in our lives that are helping us to learn this. And this has just been missing for the past century and causing no end of problems. And again, because this is becoming so obvious to people like you and to your clients who are going through successive relationships and doing the same things over and over, and letting the woman take control, which she doesn't want to do, and then she falls out of love and loses respect for the man, and then, like you say, they're in this prison. So it's one. As soon as I saw your press release and what you were doing, I thought, wow, somebody else is really getting it, and clearly you've been doing this for some time now.
Yeah, and what you've said is it is actually, I believe at its essence, the solution is quite simple. You touch on there. Because I see the new souls being born into this earth, right?
Mm.
They're coming through and they're being programmed in this current society. This society has got us programmed wrong, right? If you had the overarching company that I've called is the artistry of humanity, which has good men, but there will be good women. There's already a business aspect to work with companies. We have a 6-week program called the Wellness Accelerator program, and ultimately we'll get to the children. Now, if children had a humanity, artistry of humanity kind of course subject that come through the early years, and they understand emotional regulation. They understand how to communicate. What are boundaries? We don't get taught that. Kids are so malleable when they're younger. And once the light bulb comes on for somebody, you can't switch it off. I can't switch off the things I know now. So I'm looking at people. It's like the Matrix. It's like code. I'm going, oh, you're still coded like that. You're coded like this. And it's like from an early age, let's code our children with the best opportunity. Because what we're doing now, we're unpicking all of our traumas from that because we didn't have the proper mentorship, the proper brotherhood, the proper, education, coding. Well, isn't it as easy as it will have such a drastic impact if there was a humanity subject? And the stuff that I'm talking about is pretty simple. And as human beings, we can simplify stuff. Let's not create it overwhelming. And I think you're spot on. And that's actually part of our vision.
Yeah, once I finally understood masculinity, and obviously I'm at just the beginning of my understanding and journey of that. But instead of trying to feel that feeling, I can just feel it on command. It's like breaking through the matrix, as you say, taking the red pill, which has been that term has been misused by people who are talking about
Correct.
misogyny and the Andrew Tate sort of thing,
Correct.
which is completely not what we're talking about here, not at all.
Correct.
And
Correct.
again, you're waking people up, and some people want to be woken, and others are quite happy in their cocoon of sort of ignorance and sort of happiness at the way their life's going and don't want to change. But those who do want to change want to change.
And that's it. It's always about in anything in coaching. Like in the past, I could have somebody come to me who wants to be helped, and within 5 minutes, I'm like, this person doesn't want to be helped because they don't want the work. They want a magic pill. They
Yeah.
want to pay for something to change. If you lean into this methodology, you will improve. And just to go back to what you're saying before, it's like I think you asked me about what I've been doing. the brotherhood aspect is how this, the impact it's had already. The first men's circle I ran on Cudgee Hill here, I just started the podcast. It was the first episode, four guys together, an eclectic mix of people. One guy had been to prison, basically found himself, spirituality, God, and was on one path. Another person that had been helping, he'd come out of drinking drugs. He's bought a dog, he's helping others, he's passionate. Another guy in the health and fitness space, and all, all big guys. We all got together, but we were being really vulnerable and sharing some of our problems and what we've done. A guy turned up, he flew in from Melbourne, I didn't know, on the men's circle. When I asked if anybody got anything to share, he walks into the middle of the circle. He looks at me. I have to catch myself because sometimes it makes me emotional. And he looks at me and he says, I'm here today because I listened to your podcast, and just the fact that there was four other men there talking about these things that I was going through. I had a noose over my banister and I didn't do it. And I flew here today to tell you that's what resonated, just because I thought it's not just me. And that's the power of brotherhood and sharing, to say we're all going through it. We're all perfectly imperfect every single day. This monkey mind, this bloody, virus of a program is spitting out poison. And what we have to do as human beings is understand that's what internal work is about. It's kind of becoming at peace. What's actually going on here? Understanding yourself, sitting in stillness for 30 minutes, just sitting still. Eventually, this will switch off and you'll start, come here. So that's the importance of what we're doing and how impactful it can be, just sharing with other men.
Yeah. And look, men have to realize that nobody is coming to save you. You have to save yourself. A woman can find a good man to help her, and of course a woman can save herself too, but no one's coming to save you. Now, the brotherhood is the closest thing to having other people come to support you, but I mean, they're not going to help you either and do the work for you. You have to do the work. And until you understand that, until you realize that it's up to you and that you've got to do it, you've got to pull yourself up, and I mean, use the support of your brotherhood as much as you can. But until you realize that, this is where a lot of men, have their partner treating them like she's the mother, and it always fails.
100%. And so what we've trying to do through this app is do something that hasn't been done before. So the community aspect of this app. So other than standard stuff where you create these community chats and stuff like that, which we'll get to, straight away we wanted a unique element, because we want to use what is dividing us in technology to bring us together. So there's a new unique aspect in this community aspect. You can add your friend, or you can look through the bottom, and I'm in Sydney, Alex might be in Sydney. Oh, I can connect to you. You then have an opportunity to accept. Once you accept, you then see each other's score. We now have a common language, and it'll push you to connect into WhatsApp. So you connect together. So what we're trying to do is say, connect. So those who are lost, who are struggling to have friends and stuff, which I went through a loneliness phase, on a growth, stop drinking, don't drink anymore. And I had a period of time where I felt lonely. 40 odd years age, successful, big lump, 6'4", but I was lonely. And I was like, how do I connect to people? This feels awkward. And I'm not going to go onto the Bondi local loop. Anyone fancy a walk? Because I was nervous. I felt, people are going to think I'm a weirdo. So what we do within this app is say, have you connected? Connect to your community. It's courageous. If you're in a strong position, go and help someone else. Reach one, teach one. Brotherhood. And there's so many men out there who are like, I want to help. This is the place.
Yeah.
Just go through the app, connect. You then have a common language, and on a weekly basis, Alex, say you're traveling at the moment, you might be out of routine, few problems going on with business. On the weekly check-in, you rate yourself. It'll then pop. If you go backwards, it'll pop up because we're connected and say Alex has gone backwards. Your brother might need a hand. I then reach out through WhatsApp. You okay? And then we stay close. We can also help each other grow because we have a common language and we have similar actions. How have you been doing with this? So obviously this is the early stages of the MVP. We've got a million ideas of how we continue to improve and bring in AI mentoring and everything else with it. But at this moment right now, it's already a real valuable commodity, and it's unique in the fact that we're pushing people outside of the technology, because that's what we want. We want people to connect in the real world, create their own little mini circles, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's an online brotherhood that you want people to create physical brotherhoods. whether it's just a couple of people or a group. And I mean, this is something that, yeah, like you said, hasn't really been done before. I mean, people have been chatting on Reddit and on all sorts of other places, but not with the point of view of trying to help men understand and learn about their masculinity and the five pillars that you speak about. And for those wondering, the app is GMHGM, and from memory, it's gmhgm.com.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's right. .com.
.com, yeah. And so people can go there. And so you mentioned that there will be online chatting to come, but and you've talked about how you've done workshops in the past. I mean, are there workshops and other learning materials in the app as yet, or is all that still coming?
Yeah, well, straight away already, just through our socials, we have a socials page, Good Men Helping Good dot men, all the dots in between Good Men Helping Good Men on Instagram. So through there, you can already connect for one-on-one coaching, whether it be for me or one of our coaches. So there is the opportunity for that. There will be a book out in the near future, probably early parts of next year. We already have a full workbook that accompanies the coaching element. I've already ran workshops around in Sydney, so that will continue into start probably next year again, and we're looking at maybe a retreat as well. So there'll be all of these things happening. And we also touched on good women there before, because we believe men and women need to work in symbiosis. We have the divine feminine and divine masculine, okay? And we support our women. We need our women, and vice versa. So the good women helping good women will be birthed by the feminine. So my partner Katya, she's a really does really well in the business world. She's like head of talent acquisition for a large global IT company, actually. So she'll be helping in that space to birth that organically from the feminine. That can't come from the masculine. It needs to come from the feminine, and we will support each other all the way along. So on the podcast, I've already had women on there who are really supportive of the challenges that men go through, and vice versa. I've been there saying, first thing I'll say to anybody who comes through to me on a coaching aspect or in whatever way I interact, if they're being derogatory towards their partner, I'll say, hey, 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 what are you doing to cause this? What are you doing? Because we're all accountable for ourselves, and we are a series of decisions and actions that have taken us to this position. So why outsource our kind of fulfillment to others? Work your way back to the root. Let's go to the root. Why am I here? And then ask yourself, what are you doing? We're a mirror. How are you communicating with your partner? Can you kind of, I always say, when we go back, you mentioned about communication, and it's so key. The key to any communication is when you understand the other person is try to keep each other's egos asleep. I say our egos like a sleeping silverback gorilla. Keep it asleep. So if I was going to talk to my partner and I've got something that might be emotional or something that might be deep rooted that we're trying to appease, I might wait till we're not talking about the thing, so the emotion's not there. Lean in with, "Hey, how are you? I love you. Um, I'd just like to share some stuff," and call myself out first and say, I don't want to win an argument here. I actually want to find a solution for the relationship, and lead in a way that I know her ego stays asleep. So my ego stays asleep. So we get to the root of the matter. And it's simple things like that that I'll say to men. It's not saying all women are bad, and it's not saying all men are bad. We are inherently human beings. We have bespoke things in our DNA that kind of make us fulfilled or trigger us. And we need to understand that and take accountability for how we operate. And then if we do things in the right way, back to what you said before, then it comes to boundaries. So it's communication, and boundaries are the key to ultimately to our fulfillment.
This is a generalization, but I think it's very true. It's every woman's dream to find a good man that she can follow, that she wants to follow voluntarily, who can lead. And it's every man's dream to find a good woman who wants to follow him because he's worth following and he's not, passing his frame of leadership over to her, as we've discussed. And I mean, one of the things that in the brotherhood that I'm part of, they're trying to teach men that you are the prize, because it's hard for a woman to find a good man. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many relationship breakups. And of course, a good woman is a wonderful prize for a man. But unless you are the prize that is worth some woman, winning, as it were, it's not going to work. And you have to give yourself more credit. If men gave themselves more credit, they wouldn't be wanting to run off and commit suicide to escape.
Well, what you just said is effectively you've got to work on yourself first. Anyone, men, women, you've got to work on yourself first. Whatever you expect in the outside world, it's like in business. You don't just all of a sudden do. It's not a transaction thing. You've got to, at your core, provide an amazing service,
Yeah.
do all of the right things, and it's the same with yourself. You have to work on yourself first. We are mirrors, and the world will give us based on how good we are as a human being, as a man, as a woman, or business.
Yeah. And doing the right thing, stacking those little wins every day turns into bigger wins. There was a great I'm just checking my email here because I got this great email earlier today, which I thought was very cool. It says the doing of small things leads to the doing of great things, which is byways of blessedness. And somebody called James Allen understood that we can't leap straight into the impossible. The path to the top of the mountain always begins at the foot of it. Every act of integrity, every small promise kept. I mean, men are forever breaking promises to themselves. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then they don't do it. If you break promises to yourself, how can you keep a promise to anybody else? But every moment of doing what's right, which is what you're talking about, instead of what's easy, which is what most people want to do, those are the stones that pave the road to something extraordinary. I'm just reading here because it's spot on with what we're talking about. We tend to dismiss small beginnings because they don't feel powerful, but the truth is the smallest decision made in truth and love ripples farther than we'll ever see. The seed doesn't look like the tree, yet it contains everything needed to become one. So if the big dream feels distant today, don't despise the next small step. Do what's right in front of you, faithfully, gracefully, and with excellence. The simple act of showing up again and again carries more power than any burst of inspiration. Trying to get it all done at the last minute is not the same as doing a little bit every day and having the job done properly over the course of time. And it says here, because the great is always born from the good, and the impossible is only discovered by those who keep doing what's possible. As St. Francis of Assisi said, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. And I think a
I
lot of
love
people
that.
don't know any of that. They just think it's the lotto mentality. I'm going to win the lotto. All my problems will be solved. And we know about a lotto winners who win billions of dollars and in 2 or 3 years it's all gone.
No, 100%. It's funny you should say that because I actually had a serious situation I had to attend yesterday, um, where I thought somebody might have committed suicide. It was a guy that I've done. He's actually a friend and somebody tried to do a bit of work with. Very far gone, drink, drugs, super successful in business. Like got his own business, multi-million dollar business, but tries to buy everything, tries to like happiness, women, everything is just using this quick fix. So
Mm.
therefore, he's got no solid foundation. It's saying
Yeah.
he's massively unhappy because he's not doing those small incremental things every day, which are the right thing to do. Because as a human being, if you do what feels right to you, it feels good, it feels in flow, things will be attracted to you. If you do things just for money sometimes, which isn't really we go back to that question, is this going to harm others? Sometimes it does when you just go for money. It's not good. And you kind of almost like you get blocked. And what he's been doing in every area of his life is not doing that everyday thing, which is the right thing to do.
Mm.
Therefore, he's lost. And now he's drink drugs. So somebody who's perceived, people wouldn't realize how dark he is at the moment. Great car, great place, great business. And I'm really struggling. As somebody, he hadn't spoke to friends in a couple of days, so they reached out to me. So I had to go to his house and try and get the dog walker to come in. Eventually, we found out he was okay. But exactly what you've just described, success isn't financial success. Success is how fulfilled you feel inside, and you get that by those small incremental steps of being in flow to what is the right thing for you.
Stacking wins. From little wins, big wins grow. From little things, big things grow. Why are you launching now in October? Besides the fact that you're ready to launch.
Yeah, well, we tried to coincide with World Mental Health Week, and we got World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. So we're actually we announced tomorrow on my LinkedIn, on Insta, and all that. We're going to really put the announcement out tomorrow, which coincides with this conversation, because we want to kind of go into it to show that it's like we can do something. For me, I'm witnessing what's going out there. I can't believe the numbers of suicides. I can't. The leading cause of death is suicide, not a disease. It's so wrong. Humanity's got it wrong. We've lost our way, But as we've said during this conversation, I think the solution could be more simple than we think. We just need to get the right thing. So for me, it's like I want to show people that we can do stuff. I've just pulled this together with my own finances. I've pulled my life savings, focus on something because doing nothing was not an option for me once I realized what was going on. And at this moment, I want to try and ride on the wave of World Mental Health Week. I want to try and get out there as much as I can, give it initially free to as many people as we can. It's the MVP model, get it out there, help everybody. Hopefully, then it adds the value that we believe it's going to do. Then we'll talk about maybe a paywall later into next year stuff. But at the moment, I want to just help as many people as I can, get it out there off the back of this because obviously media are more looking at these stories now, so it coincides. Help make springboard because for every person that comes on here, there's a potential life saved. There's more fulfillment that's going to come through. What does that mean to? It means women have a better relationship because they have a better partner. Children have a better father. Businesses have a better business. Society as a whole will improve because good leaders create good society.
That's right. Yes. And so this is a bit of a soft launch. You're launching tomorrow, as you were saying. But what have the initial responses to the app been, or are you still awaiting a flood of those over the next week as people discover the app?
Yeah, well, obviously we've been working with a beta testing pool because we go live with it effectively tomorrow. So we've had a lot of people with it on the app. The thing that you get is, great responses, but the people who are coming on are wanting to do the work. So what we now need to do is make sure that when people come through, it's easy enough for those people who might have a little bit of friction to do that work. That's why we're trying to make it as simple as possible. So from what we've had so far, it's like, as I say, it's like the light bulb comes on and people go, oh shit. It's those 20 questions, which
Yeah.
is the light bulb, which people are going, oh. And it's that love and relationships one. That for me has been the biggest impact for men because so many men are suffering. And when I ask them that question, they just look at me and go, shit, yeah, I'm not doing that. And that's why I'm in the lot of this pain. So massive impact. Obviously, small beta testing community, and we're going into that launch this week, and we're hoping to see the same results come through.
Now, I have a bunch of other questions, but we've already answered them. I wanted to know the cost to download the app. It's free for now. How else will the app and the Brotherhood evolve? Well, there'll be more courses and classes and community, and there's other things you're going to be doing. You've got the MVP that's there. Will AI play any role in the future? Well, you'll think of an AI mentor. I mean, obviously there's dangers with AI. Have you got plans for a women's version of the app or for other groups? Well, yeah, you're looking at doing a women's version. You're looking at doing a corporate version. I wanted to ask you how you develop the app through developers or AI vibe coding, and you said, well, you had to engage people, I guess, to help you put the app together because you're not a developer. So with all that sort of already answered, I mean, you can elaborate on any of those topics, but my next question was, what else do we need to know about the Good Men Helping Good Men movement and the app?
So the app itself, I've explained. It's about when you come into the app, you get asked 20 questions, you get your light bulb. Oh, okay, this is where I'm at. It gives you a framework. You then move in, you pick some actions. Not overwhelming. You can choose. We start recommend with one or two. Then on a weekly basis, you rate yourself. This is your pulse check to see where am I sitting. And each day you'll get a prompt. We ask you people to connect to the community, have a minimum of one buddy, and then you check in with each other because you now have a common language that you can talk to each other on. And that's that thing of the overwhelm. Let's remove the overwhelm and let's all focus on these kind of pillars and move forward. So that's the app. I think it's pretty simplistic. We will continue to iterate and make it work as we go. But it's just super essential that people realize that we are all struggling. And the biggest thing that I've realized is everybody is wearing a mask. Everybody is wearing a mask. They wear a mask for their relationship. They wear the mask for work. They wear the mask with their mates. Now, most men are waiting for another man to remove the mask to be real. We can only be, we can only help each other when we're real. It's like when I look at you and say, hey brother, I'm doing all this work. I've had a few issues over the last 2 weeks. Another business that I've been having some legal issues. It affected me deeply. I had a few days where I was struggling. I had to do a lot of work to kind of get through that. And then somebody then come in and go, you're doing that and you're actually doing this thing, but you're still struggling. And I go, hell yeah, because I'm human being and every day shit comes at us. It's those type of things, because when I drop the mask or you drop the mask, the next person drops the mask, and that's when we get to the real crux of the matter. So what I would say that the biggest essence of this is, let's be real, men. Let's be real, because I'm waiting for somebody if somebody comes to me, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna help you. So just think about it.
Yeah.
If your mate came to you, if your mate came to you and asked for support, would you want to hear it? Hell yeah. Would you help them? Hell yeah. Well, be comfortable doing the same with your friends. Drop the mask. Be real. Vulnerability is a superpower. And this is the way we get through this, because once we're open and we realize we've got a problem, and this is what I'm trying to provide, a home base. And then we go to this home base and we can all come together here and grow through a common language, which is pretty simple to understand, if that makes sense.
It does. And look, I mean, I joined this online brotherhood back in June when I listened to this man's podcast and his teachings. And I came to realize that, when I often heard people talk about other people as being brothers. I mean, you often hear Middle Eastern men call everybody brother. Hey, brother, walk into a shop. Hey, brother. Hey, brother. I reckon they call their, some of their female friends brother. They just use it as a term of endearment. But actually, it has a real meaning, but only if you understand it and believe it. And so finally, I mean, I guess I have a new brotherhood with you now as well. Like, you're my brother too. And like, actually, I believe that. Whereas before, I just thought, it didn't make any sense. It was kind of fake. But once you understand it, then you do realize that, you know, we are all brothers and sisters, but some of us are obviously going to be much closer in our little brotherhood to be able to drop the mask, as you say. I mean, you've got to take the mask off yourself. But when you see other people doing it, then, as you say, you can sort of relax and share your troubles and be open and get support. And that's been missing for
Yeah.
decades.
It's the ultimate connector. When somebody removes the mask, you connect deeply because that's the real you. Most people are existing in an artificial relationship that doesn't actually exist. Because I'm talking this thing to match what you're saying, and we're just talking this fluff a lot of times. It's like when you go to a networking business event.
Yeah,
Sometimes you're like, this is doom. They're not the best.
yeah.
What I like to do in a networking business event, for example, is I'll go to them and say, where are you from? And they'll tell me something because I love Australia, and it allows me to connect to something real. And I'll say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'll start talking and connect to somebody and try and get deep before I lift up into the surface crap.
Mm,
And that's what it's like as a human being. If I share something real to you, you're going to go, "Oh, there's no magic here," and then you're going to drop, and we connect in a real basis. And that thing of brotherhood, you're I've understood that over the last couple of years as well. Because for me, a meaning of a brother, if I'm calling someone, thank you, brother, that I'm going to help that person. If they reach out to me tomorrow, if I'm calling you brother, like I'll say, Alex, you're my brother. If you reached out to me tomorrow and said, I'm over in Vegas, but I've got a serious problem with somebody in here, I would come and help. That's what it means to be a brother. I will help you. And I know the other person there will help me. And we can share real. Because for me, that's what the meaning of brotherhood is. When you call, we help.
yeah. And for those wondering, I actually am in Las Vegas at the moment. I'm here for a SAP conference that's starting tomorrow. So that wasn't a random mention of Vegas from you there, Ian. It's because we talked about it before, that I'm here and you're there, and the magic of Zoom allows us to be connected so effortlessly. Look, you've spoken a lot about yourself and why you started the GMHGM app and movement, Good Men Helping Good Men. But I always like to finish on some pretty basic personal questions related to technology, because I'm a technology journalist and from itwire.com. And I always like to ask, can you please share a memory of your first personal computer?
Mine was the Commodore 16. Do you remember the Commodore 16?
Well, that was before the 64. I mean, there was the VIC 20 and there was a Commodore 64, but I mean, vaguely I remember the 16, but it wasn't the one that was popular. It was the 64 that was popular.
Exactly. Well, I got the unpopular one. So my friend, I had the Commodore 16, And then at the same time, people were getting the 64 and the Amiga,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah, yeah.
was.
Mega
And
500. Yeah,
I was jealous of my friends, and I used to play just the games, and it would
yeah.
take forever to upload, and I would play those stupid things on the screen. But I was always amazed because I remember it was a friend of mine who, if I've never been a techie person, right? But he made a game on a tape cassette by doing whatever he was doing, and it blew my mind. I'm like, how could you do that? It was the most basic of basic things, just
Yeah.
a ball moving around the screen, but it absolutely blew my mind. But the first thing for me was the Commodore 16. I think I was the butt of all my friends' jokes because I had the crappiest computer, but that was mine.
And my second last question is to ask if you could please share some of the best advice you've received in life to help you get where you are today. And I think you've done a bunch of that already, but is there anything else that really strikes you that you'd love to share with everyone who's watching?
I think the biggest thing which carries across everything is we are perfectly imperfect. And every day there'll usually be something that we cock up with, and that's okay. I think the key thing is to forgive yourself and move on. I think this virus that a lot of us run through just runs, if we allow it, we think about all of the problems, what we've messed up with, and we just poison our brains. And the key thing I always give to anybody who are coaches, write down if you've got a problem that's running in, this virus is running in your brain, write it down, come to the conclusion, let it go. The mere thing of getting it out and putting it down is the thing can usually, it's like the app, swipe them, get go, go, go. Because the people I work with, they're poisoning themselves more than the problem that it actually exists.
Mm.
So I would just say, we're perfectly imperfect, forgive yourself, and just let things go. Let things go.
And another very important thing that I've learnt to do from the people that I'm now involved with is to journal. Get a little A4,
Oh,
A5 booklet, and just write every morning, as part of working on yourself for an hour before you allow the rest of the world to invade, after you've done your exercises and breathing and stretching, you know, before anything else, before you grab your phone, journal what happened. And if you can, journal at the end of the day as well, so you can process what happened at the end of the day. People don't do that, and they should.
yeah, and just on you're spot on. And the key thing in journaling, if you can, is focus on the gratitude. When you focus on the gratitude, no other emotion can live in gratitude. Once you sit in gratitude, it's the highest frequency, it's the highest emotion. You can't be depressed, you can't be sad, you can't have these emotions. Because if you found a way, and it's very strategic, I say, what we've created is a human KPI. Most people focus on business KPIs, but I have a human KPI. Why do you focus all your attention on the work KPI and not the human KPI?
Yeah.
You can be equally as strategic with your own human KPI. And that one, what you've described as gold. Journal, focus on gratitude, but find a way to feel gratitude. For me, I love Australia. I love it. It was my dream to live here. I came here 11 years ago. I love it more every day. I can't believe I can look at the water. But I remember the day I came here to get the role that I then had. And I got off the plane. I was filled with what I could only describe as overwhelming feelings of joy, which I then realized, immense gratitude, whatever it was. I was like, oh, I'm here. I was so excited. Now, if I'm ever feeling down, I can literally transport myself to that moment and I feel it again and it gets rid of the crap. If I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh, I can sit myself. Now, that's strategic human KPI to make me feel better. And that's what I describe. So when you talk about journaling with a huge gratitude focus and find something that consumes you will get rid of those other emotions. That is strategy.
Very well said. So, what is your final message to the viewers and the readers, Ian?
The final message would be we are all suffering, men, women, and we need to work in symbiosis. Get rid of this division, get rid of all this crap out there that's happening in society today. At our core, remember that question. Are the actions or the words I'm about to speak going to harm others? If the answer is yes, I would suggest you stop and take a different path.
Well, Ian Williams from Good Men Helping Good Men. You can go to gmhgm.com. You can search for it in the Android and the iPhone app stores. You're a leadership coach, you're a speaker, you're a doer. You're creating a new movement and igniting this brotherhood in Australia and I guess around the world. And congratulations and thank you so much. We've had such a great and deep discussion today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely, brother. Talk to you again soon. Bye bye.
Cheers.